If we look at the debris surrounding the World Trade Center, we find a snowfall of fine dust and intact pieces of paper scattered everywhere. If fires were responsible for the collapses, why didn't the papers burn or get shredded to pieces in the pancake collapse? Instead, we see white sheets of paper floating on a cushion of hot air in front of a pyroclastic flow of dust and debris through the streets. Paper and powder. How could it be possible? It appears that the high strength-to-weight ratio of paper allowed it to survive the energy blast that vaporized all heavy and denser materials. From within the shadows, we can see a bright explosive flash, and if we rewind the tape, a countless series of explosive flashes reveal themselves as responsible for the complete destruction of the inner steel framework. Simple visual evidence is perhaps the best place to start. This genuine building collapse due to an earthquake doesn't resemble the World Trade Center at all. Notice how the cars are crushed but otherwise intact. At the World Trade Center, cars parked nearby were turned into charred wrecks by an intense blast of heat, but were not crushed by falling debris. Could traditional demolition explosives produce this blast of intense heat? Clearly, a very powerful energy source was required. Our darkest suspicions have been confirmed by a military expert in Finland who has published several articles on this website showing international support for the victims in New York City. No other mechanism can explain the observed result of pulverized concrete and vaporized steel. On the right, we see a hydrogen bomb test and can instantly recognize the similarities to the World Trade Center. This is the awful truth that Fahrenheit 9/11 wasn't allowed to show you in a theater. Here we can see the firework explosions that the 1010 Winds news reporter spoke of within the collapsing debris. A rapid series of bright flashes are visible, indicating the destruction of the heavy steel in the internal framework.
It's like the interior of this building. There was pieces of their desks and pieces of the photos on their desks.
Could conventional demolition explosives vaporize all the people, computers, and office furniture in the towers, while pulverizing all the concrete in the floors into fine powder, and have enough left over to fracture the welded steel framework of up to 4-inch thick steel beams?
Trudging through this snow-like substance.
Our paper powder theory has been recognized as evidence of a thermonuclear device being detonated in the basements of both towers and World Trade 7 in order to superheat all the steel and concrete and sufficiently weaken the structure to facilitate the observed progressive collapses.
There was a schoolyard across the street, and I remember there were kids that were being evacuated from the schoolyard. And one of the girls looked up into the sky and she said to her father, "Daddy, look, they're doing it on purpose."
After a 3-year-long court battle, part of the firefighter and emergency worker eyewitness testimony was finally released to the public. Here are some excerpts that are confirmed by Rick's original video containing multiple explosions prior to the collapse of both towers.
Well, me and Mr. Hesh, Corporation Counsel, were on the 23rd floor. I told him we got to get out of here. We started walking down the stairs. We made it to the 8th floor. Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor. And I turned to Hesh. I said, "This is it. We're dead. We're not going to make it out of here." I took a fire extinguisher, and I bust the window out. That's when this gentleman here heard my cries for help. This gentleman right here, and he kept saying, "Stand by, somebody's coming to get you." They couldn't get to us for an hour because they couldn't find us.
To summarize this 9/11 eyewitness testimony, we were on the 23rd floor. We started walking down the stairs. We made it to the 8th floor. Big explosion. Blew us back into the 8th floor. They couldn't get to us for an hour because they couldn't find us. Let's analyze this 8th floor explosion testimony. This man said he was trapped for an hour before being rescued. We know that the South Tower fell in less than an hour after impact. Therefore, he must have been in the North Tower on the 23rd floor. So we can conclude that after the World Trade Center 1 impact, he walked down 15 floors. Jet fuel would burn off within 2 or 3 minutes after impact. If spilled fuel fell 1,000 feet down an elevator shaft in 10 seconds, it should have caused an explosion immediately, or it would quickly evaporate on the elevator shaft walls. Since it would take some time for the men to walk down 15 flights of stairs, we can conclude that the 8th floor explosion reported was not caused by jet fuel.
And then finally a jet comes up the river. You know, these fighter jets look cool, but I didn't feel thrilled anymore. Instead, I'm like, where were you? What the hell are you doing here so late? We needed you. They weren't there. Makes you feel not American anymore, you know? You want to stand up for it, but you can't stand up for that. Yeah, where were you guys?
Let's take a closer look at the free-fall collapse of the North Tower. We will begin with the digital editing system used to produce this program. It contains all the features we need to examine the raw footage in detail, such as video window, time code counter, audio waveform, and sound level meters.
The bridges have pretty much been blocked off. Everyone is being diverted. There is just no way into the city except for emergency vehicles. I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city. Folks stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner, I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking across, but there's just no way for them to. As I look out, something happens. I can't.
Next, we will rearrange the key elements so that it will be easier to see that indeed a massive explosion occurs before any changes in the North Tower, World Trade Center 1 are visible.
Being diverted. There is just no way into the city except for emergency vehicles. I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was